Well, back when I was in the Marines, they taught us that if they ever drop a really big bomb, they told us to hold up your thumb just like this. And if the cloud is smaller than your thumb, you run for the hills.
And if it's bigger than your thumb?
They told us not to bother running.
Do you think it's gonna happen?
I certainly hope not. But us cowpokes, we take it as it comes, right?
Come along with us on an idle ride through the latest science fiction and fantasy shows, movies, and video games. Welcome to Idle Ride. I'm Marcy, your host, and I'm here with my chosen brother and co-host, Paul.
Ready to leave the vault with you.
I know, we're gonna escape to the wastes. Today is one of the most exciting days because we get to talk about the first episode of the Amazon Prime Fallout titled The End. And before we get to that, though, I do want to do a little plug because I haven't asked in a while, but if you like our show, go ahead and rate it and review us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcast, because I'm on every application. So, let's get into the first episode of Fallout. I'm so excited. Oh my God, it was so good. I watched it again for the second time because it's been a long time last night, and I literally... Audience wrote like 7 pages of handwritten notes, and Andrew, my husband, was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you're not gonna be able to talk about all of that in like an hour. And I'm like, I know, it might have to be a 2-hour podcast.
So brace yourselves, audience.
But
for all those 45-minute ones we did for Avatar, this is making up for it.
Yeah, absolutely. My excitement can now be free. So, Paul, what was your first impression of this very first segment, which is basically the Cooper Howard segment, where you meet him for the first time as his kind of more innocent self?
Yeah, I thought it was kind of an interesting route to go. I wasn't sure what to expect, and I guess when the bomb went off, I was like, okay, I know where we're at. This is cool. Or like, I guess before it, when he was it was his daughter, right? With the thumbs up.
Uh-huh.
Like, if it's as big as your thumb, like, run away. That was so cute. And I was like, okay, yeah, we got the 50s going on here. We got ridiculously weird socialite parents. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was good. Yeah. So the opening scene is Cooper Howard, who later you will meet again as the Ghoul. But the actor is Walton Goggins.
I love Walton Goggins.
He is so good, and I don't want to call him a character actor, but he feels like one of those character actors that is kind of always sidelined a little bit, but like you never forget his face. He has this smile that is just so intense and bright that is hard to just not see. But yeah, I am so happy that he is the main, well, not the main character, but like one of the main characters of the show, and really is the guiding force of the show in terms of how we learn about the history of this world.
I look forward to that because he's often a villain or at least a very flawed character. So it'll be cool to see him as someone you're supposed to root for instead of a white supremacist religious leader.
Yeah, he really is. Like, even though the Ghoul character that he becomes is kind of a, I guess, gray level of ethical morals, he is a good guy at his core, even though it's all shriveled when he's a ghoul.
That's a medical condition, Marcy. Sorry.
He needs special medications for that. What I remember he played in was LA Confidential and Django Unchained is kind of like some of the characters. And obviously they were not great. I mean, he as an actor was great, but his characters were kind of bad guys in those. What do you remember him from?
Justified. I loved him in Justified. It's the first time I really paid attention to him.
Yeah, I never watched a lot of those episodes, so I didn't recall him from that. So.
Gotcha. I also love Justified because Timothy Olyphant, I love him in a lot of things. And I think it was like the girl next door. He played like a pimp character who's very charming and charismatic and then a horrible person. Like threatening rape in a car to this boy. So yeah, him being like the protagonist was an interesting flip. So like the fact that Mr. Goggins gets his interesting flip now is justified.
Oh, nice.
Thank you.
So the beginning of the show really just hits you immediately with Fallout-esque world stuff.
Yeah, the color palette, it's like, these are the happy times. Look at us.
Exactly. It starts with those classic music. So we get Nat King Cole. Orange Colored Sky is the name of the song that they start out with, which is kind of an interesting title if you think about what happens when a nuke goes off. Orange Colored Sky. Anyway, for me, it always just brings back when we were kids. I'm in my early 40s. Our parents listened to these oldies songs, at least mine did. And so I remember being a little kid, my parents giving me a tape that was all these oldies songs, and then I would be like singing them with my little yellow Walkman, you know? And so it does bring back, even for me, like these nostalgic feels, because like now the classics channel is like 1970s, you know, 1980s music. But for me as a kid, the classics were this.
Did you have to go through like nuclear preparations at all in school as a kid? I did not.
I don't remember, but my mom actually does tell me stories about like how they would have bomb warnings and then she would like have to get under the desk and stuff. So immediately I'm like in nostalgia mode, and then I'm in nostalgia mode for the games because it's my second time watching. I noticed a bunch of little things like the woman who's running the party walks by really quickly. A Mr. Handy is back there and he's like, "Can I help you, Mom?" And that's like one of the things that the Mr. Handys always say is Mom. And then the radio starts discussing the Anchorage incident.
The Anchorage, yes.
John talked about the DLC Operation Anchorage a lot in the previous episode. And then later on in the party, the kids turn on a television show, Grognak the Barbarian, which is a comic that you pick up in the games that gives you extra melee skill points.
I remember Grognak, yes.
Yep, and he's on the screen, and then like there's a sugar bomb commercial, and you're just like immediately within like 2 to 3 minutes, if you're a Fallout gamer, you're like, oh, like bombarded with all this stuff
lore.
That yeah, exactly, immediately. So that's good. So you're introduced to Cooper, and he's obviously not enjoying this little stint of being a cowboy at a kid's party, but he's doing it. And as you said, there's these asshole socialites that are kind of making fun of him because he's a big time TV star or movie star. Why is he here at this kid's party?
And he's got a horse.
Yeah, he's got a horse. Like, I mean, he looks pretty amazing. I love the cowboy outfit. I kind of, like you said, love the color palette that they're doing here. But you're already getting a feel for this is definitely the 1950s where communism was like a huge deal. You could get arrested for being in the Communist Party. And they throw all these little clues already at the beginning here that this is this new alternate world where there's, you know, atomic age technology, like definitely not our world, but it's a parallel world.
Right.
Like you mentioned before, you get Janie, his cute little daughter, who's all dressed up in a cowboy outfit just like him, which I loved. And you can see that he's a good father, that he loves her, she loves him.
He's doing this for her, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Often it's seen in movies where there's veterans who are like not good with their children when they come back because they have PTSD or whatever. But I like that they're showing that he's actually honest with her, like about, I was a Marine, and in the Marines, they taught me special things. Like he's talking about his history with her a little bit. And the thumbs up thing is basically, if you see a nuclear mushroom, put your thumb up. If it's bigger than your thumb, then you can't run. But if it's smaller, then you better get out of there or something.
Yeah.
So he's like teaching her this little lesson, and he leaves to get cake for her. And then she witnesses the dropping of one of the nukes.
And strangely, despite there being at least 30, probably more like 50 people at this event, she's the only one who sees the Flash, which should have blinded her as well. And yeah, like everyone's just like, oh, I didn't see this bright light happen. Maybe it was a camera. I don't know.
This is a moment. There's a couple of moments in here. I love the show so much that I'm willing to just, whatever. Like, yes, she would have been totally blinded from actually witnessing the Flash, but we just, suspend disbelief.
Well, right, because she has to do the thumb thing. We just talked about it.
Exactly, which she does. And she says this cute little line when her dad comes out. So, is it your hand or my hand that's
so
bigger? It was lots of good writing. And there's a couple of lines that are a little off, but that's okay.
That's just a fire, darling.
I loved the effects. I don't know if it's realistic, but it sure looks good. Do you know what a realistic nuke bomb? I mean, I think these are supposed to not be a true nuke bomb. It's supposed to be those smaller bombs, city-based bombs.
Yeah, and those exist now. Not that I've seen them take out any cities or anything, but from test video footage that I've seen, it looked wider, but who knows? Maybe it was like a controlled blast of 3 or something.
Anyway, it looked cool to me.
It looked cool.
I loved the slow motion. He protects his daughter and starts running off. And immediately they do some of the stuff like, I think in the previous episode we talk about there's these little vignettes almost that you come across like in houses where there's skeletons like dead and and they're like laying together, or it looks like somebody shot themselves, and like you're seeing these moments happening in action. Like, I don't know if you notice that one little snippet where the guy that owns the house is basically going into a fallout shelter, which obviously isn't gonna work, but he's got one in his house, and he like punches this other guy out who wants to go in with him, and I'm like, already we're seeing these scenes.
Yes, I think I wrote that like milliseconds after the apocalypse and people be punching already.
Exactly. It was pretty good. I mean, obviously it's not good, but it was nice to see these like moments. And pretty much this opening sequence could be compared to the opening sequence of Fallout 4, where the main character of Fallout 4 is basically a person who was cryogenically frozen and comes back after 200 years. So you get to actually see the bombs drop. So they're kind of redoing the Fallout 4 intro, but for our main character, Cooper Howard. So that's it. That's all I got to say about that intro.
It was a great opening scene. Like 10 out of 10. Yep. Did watch twice. Might watch again.
Yeah, exactly. So then they do a nice cut to literally putting on the screen 219 years later.
So thanks for telling us, guys. Like, I would have been speculating forever. So
yeah, I mean, I think especially for people who have never played the game, it's great that they like let you know right away that this is a long time later. And we're introduced to another of the main characters, Lucy McLean, and she lives in Vault 33. And such a great intro to the character. They started off with special, all of the different unique attributes that you have to put in your character. Like,
and they just like make it practically related. Like, oh, in my gun training class, and this is my vacuuming class or whatever. Like.
Yeah, all the things she says are, and I wrote them down, science, repair, speech, with a like side speech of history and ethics, riflery, gymnastics, and phys ed. So they basically hit all of it. Oh, and then like spending time with a family. The only one that you don't really get to see is probably luck.
Yeah. My luck class.
Yeah, I don't know how you would present that. Oh, playing poker or something. Yeah, it was so well done that they like incorporated that somehow. And I like that it was an interview process, so that made sense that she's like talking about herself. She's trying to get an application to get a husband, so she has to like show them all the things that she's good at.
It's really her MRS degree, the Mrs.
Yeah. That's good. I like it. And even in this section, there's a lot of little Easter eggs for people who play the game. Like when her application gets accepted, there's this little like ping noise that comes out of her Pip-Boy, which is the wrist device that she has on her arm. And it's very specific sound that comes from Fallout 1 and 2 when you get a perk and that noise happens. And I was like, I like came a little bit when I heard that. And then her brother in the scene where she's talking about her family is like playing one of the little Pip-Boy mini games. I think it's like the communist one. I can't remember, like where there's the guy he's in the little cape with the black face.
Okay, because I remember maybe this was a different scene, but he was playing the space control or something where like missiles are coming down.
The missiles, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same scene.
Okay.
I think that's like the guy is supposed to be the representative of the communists.
I see.
Yeah. Also, I guess I loved all the Vault Boy posters, which are like the propaganda posters for the Vault Tech company. And it's always the Vault Boy who's like giving a thumbs up, which the main character, Cooper Howard, later you learn is like, that's why I wouldn't do the thumbs up, but you'll learn about that later. I won't talk about it. I try not to spoil some of the later episodes, but.
Good, because I haven't seen them yet.
So again, Lucy's trying to get an application to get a husband from this other vault that they're kind of connected to, and her application gets approved. So she's preparing for her meetup with her new husband, and I really like this scene. It's like every scene I love where her friend, she has like a best friend who's pregnant, and
God, she's a badass.
yeah, she's so fun. She's like, I love this idea of almost like the Stepford Wives kind of situation where they're all like super upbeat, but they've all been just like practicing to defend their vault just in case, you know?
You've exactly got it. Like they nailed like the 50s fake happy all the time sort of vibe and just ratcheted it up in a vault so that everyone just has to be that way. It's very Vault Tech.
Yeah, it's amazing. And so she's with her best friend getting fitted to this wedding dress. And I just loved it's like a lore moment from a game where she opens the dress up and like every woman who's worn the dress has signed the dress and worn the same dress that she's going to wear to get married. So it's just like a great little moment that shows you, first of all, that time has passed and that like she is connected to each one of the people that has been in this vault, you know?
Yeah, like there's a deep history that they recycle and reuse as much as possible. And I'm sort of in a Warhammer game with our friend Jason, and their suits of armor have the same like long tradition. So it's kind of funny.
Oh, that's cool. And of course, one of the best lines of the whole episode, there's lots of really good lines, but is where she talks about doing cousin stuff.
Stuff.
I actually have that line, so let's play that here.
Feels a little tight. Won't be for long. On my wedding night, that dress got off almost as fast as Bert did. Oh gosh. After 10 years of cousin stuff, I'm definitely excited for the real thing.
Oh, Lucy.
I am just excited for us to raise our kids together.
I just love it.
That's so cute that they just call it cousin stuff.
So funny.
And it's a legitimate problem in Iceland, so...
Yeah, it's funny. They have like a database, don't they?
Yep, like whole dating apps dedicated to, is this person I'm interested in too closely related to me?
Yeah, when you're isolated in a place, that's an issue. And I just love that they immediately address it, you know?
Yep.
So we kind of get an introduction to her dad and her brother. And this is where we see Kyle MacLachlan is her kind of dopey dad here, at least at the beginning. And he does such a great job. And he's the perfect character because later, spoiler alert, his character gets a little darker. But you'll know Kyle MacLachlan from hopefully Twin Peaks. Well, I don't like Twin Peaks, but other people do. The 1980s Dune, and he's the mayor also on Portlandia, and he's just kind of like a good, fun, quirky actor to play this character. Perfect actor to play the dad.
It's funny because when I first saw him, my brain went, is that Bruce Campbell?
No.
But no, not at all.
Bruce Campbell could have been fun, but I think he would have been a little too
would've been all
sarcastic
right.
for the role because he can't not be sarcastic, I feel like, and stuff.
That's true.
And then Norm, I didn't actually look up the actor for Norm, but he's definitely kind of a really funky looking actor, very short. He's not a young person, but he definitely kind of has that young feel. So I really liked this actor for the role of Norm.
Yeah.
And I do love that Norm's first thing is just like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, you could be married to some old guy and like, you haven't even seen this dude yet. And I love that they have their back here. I do feel like often like sibling relationships are portrayed as, I don't know, at each other's throats. But I do love that they showed kind of a loving sibling relationship here. It made me feel like it was you and Christy, Paul, like if you were innocent vault dwellers.
That's funny because I definitely got like the slacker loser vibe from him, like Seth Green playing him, kind of.
Yeah,
like...
I mean, I guess he does seem like he plays second fiddle to his sister a little bit, but I also didn't feel like he felt bad about that. I think he liked his role
he was
as
fine.
the guy that didn't have to take any responsibility.
Yeah. And according to the rules of bride transfer, maybe he wasn't too invested in Vault 33 because when he's ready, he's probably going to go over to 32, you know?
That's an interesting point that he could be the next Brood stud. And then Ella Parnell, what a feminine looking person. Like, she is so, like, her eyes are so huge and enormous and luminous, and you're just like, I mean, there's some people in this world that just look feminine, and she does. And I love how she pulls that look off and also becomes like a badass at the same time. Like, she really does a great job of doing that, like, innocent, ultra feminine, but also can step up to the plate when needed, kind of.
She gets badass pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I guess that actor, she was in Yellow Jackets, and then also she did a lot of voice acting. So she did some voice acting for Arcane, the cartoon on Netflix, which is also a video game translation. And she was Jinx in that, and that's like a really crazy character. And she did a really good job. I love that cartoon. And then she's also the voice of Gwendala from Prodigy, Star Trek Prodigy. So yeah, she's definitely into that kind of stuff. And I learned also that she played Fallout once she learned she was going to be an actor in the TV show. So she actually decided to play a character in a Fallout game. And I was like, good job, girl. Like, you're really, I'm sure she played Arcane too. Like, she seems like she's taking the role seriously. Like, you know how some people you can just tell when they're not invested in the role. And I feel like she really was.
Yeah. No, you definitely love it when an actor takes their role seriously enough to read the source material or play it in this case.
Yeah.
Also, if I understand correctly, Arcane comes from League of Legends, just so we don't have angry listener being like, Arcane's not the game name.
You're right. I never did play League of Legends, but that's where it comes from. Thank you for clarifying that, Paul.
No problem. Pedantry.
Any trolls getting down on me, I'll just have to ban them. Okay, so the next scene is basically she's in her wedding dress walking to Vault 32's door connection to Vault 33, and Chet is her cousin who she's been doing cousin stuff with.
And you know he's sad.
Yeah, he's the gatekeeper, which was kind of like a funny title. All he does is like open the door.
Yeah, when he pulled out the cable from his Pip-Boy, I was suddenly like, do Pip-Boys have USB?
Yeah, I was like, he's pulling out his ding dong to stick into the female slot of the door opener, and he's like messing around and pretending like it can't open, and she goes over there, and it's such like a funny scene. Like, I love how practical she is about sex. Like, that's also one of my favorite parts of her is her sex positive, like, whatever, this is it, you know? I had sex with you at one point, but like, we gotta just nip it in the butt here, Chet. He's like, I love you, and she's like, we all know that cousins aren't viable for having offspring. And he's like, you're right. And opens the door.
It's just the facts, Chet.
So anytime the vault doors open, I definitely get chills. So this is the first time we see a vault door open, but it's technically not a vault door to the waist. It just goes to
Right.
Vault 32.
Oh, so I had a question about this. Do they explain what Vault 32 and 33 do? Like, what's their science thing later? Or is that something to speculate on?
They do talk about, because there's,
Okay.
spoilers, another vault they're attached to. So
A three-way vault.
yes, a flux capacitor of vaults.
Yes. Polyvaultery.
That's good. So yes, they do kind of go into all of that, and that's
Okay.
more later. Like Norm's storyline is exploring that piece of it.
Yeah, because it seemed kind of interesting to me that there was a vault connected to a vault.
Yeah, it's a new one that even in the games we haven't really seen something like that. So
Cool.
we get introduced to the quote-unquote overseer of Vault 32, and just for other people, if you haven't played the game, an overseer is basically the mayor or head of a vault. That's their title. So Moldaver is the name of the overseer for Vault 32, and this is a woman who looks pretty sketchy to me immediately. The actor that plays Moldaver is Sarita Choudhury. I did recognize her, but I just could not recall what I'd seen her from. But I guess she plays in Hunger Games Mockingjay, which makes sense that I would recognize her from that because I like that series.
And think she's dangerous.
Yes. And then also she's in Jessica Jones. So
Okay.
a couple of
Okay.
things you might know her from. So it is funny. There's like a scene where they're like, here's your husband. And like all the girls are like, oh yeah, he's hot. And she's like, obviously like, good choice.
Ding, ding, ding.
I can fuck this guy. And I think it's funny because her best friend has sort of like a dowdy husband. So her friend's like, lucky, basically off to the side.
And the ritual when they start talking, it seemed very formal, and clearly the Vault 33 scare quote people had researched. Like, they figured out what to do because they said the right things.
Yeah. And you learn that there was a wheat shortage or plague or something.
Yeah.
So they need food, and so we're providing them goods for their breeder. Or we. I like how I'm adding myself to Vault 33. Already playing a character in here. So I'm gonna quickly go through unless Paul has specific things he wants to talk to, but like the next scenes are basically them dancing, just doing some wedding stuff. The mayor or the overseer 33, which is Lucy's dad, is the overseer of Vault 33. He gives a little speech. Chet's sad, and Norm starts looking suspicious. And the moment they all sit down to dinner, you're like, oh yeah, these guys are raiders. I don't know if you picked up on it, but immediately I was like, oh.
I felt sketchy vibes from the way they were introduced. Like, you see only their backs as they go into the vault with all of our people, and it just felt kind of ominous. But yeah, by this point, it's like, these guys are acting really suspicious. Like, let's call them Oakland because they're raiders.
Nice football reference there. Yeah, they're like stealing food from other people's plates, like eating like they're low class individuals. Yeah, obviously.
Like they haven't had a good meal in a while.
Yeah, so it's pretty obvious. And Norm's like, I don't know about this. So he heads off, and then Lucy decides to take her husband back to her room and get down to business. Yeah, she's gonna get herself some husband action. So you also get the first okie dokie line, which
I have that written down. Okie dokie.
I have that line for us to listen to.
Yes.
Oh, isn't it great? Every big moment of our lives is gonna happen right here. Picture the Christmas mornings around the tree, We have everything with the hand-me-downs, an icebox, a blender. They even gave us...
He just dropped his trowel.
Okie dokie.
Her reaction is so perfect.
It really is.
And she was unwittingly correct that every moment of their lives together was going to be in that room.
Exactly. Oh, man. It is funny that she's just chatting away and she turns around and he's got his dick out. She's like, all right, I guess we're doing this.
And her Pip-Boy will have a clock that's how long from when they entered the threshold to when they did it.
They kind of do a cut, I think, to Norm at that point, and we see him sort of moving around in Vault 32, and I feel like this is a really classic scene, maybe like you would have in a video game where you're searching a vault and you're coming across all this weird shit, and Norm's the one, he's like you in this moment, right? Where you're like, oh,
Something's
fuck,
not right.
Something's not right.
This is a minor quibble I have because I'm going to be honest about my quibbles because it's such an amazing show.
Sure.
He gets a 1 second look at the back of a chair with a not moving person there. He does not get the view that we have of the dead person. He doesn't expect the body. He just, oh, there's somebody sitting in a chair. I suddenly know everything.
Maybe he smelled it, Paul.
Okay, he smelled it.
And saw a bunch of other stuff that we didn't get to see or something. And that was his final straw.
Yes.
His final wheat straw. Yes, so...
That was also theirs. That's why they had the famine.
We're so funny. People died of starvation. Yeah, so they cut back to Lucy where she's like in the glow of sex and orgasm, and the guy gets up from the bed naked and walks over to this fake outdoor scene with curtains like it's a fake window. And this is just like the most disgusting moment. He wipes his dick off with her curtain, and you're like,
yeah.
That's gross. And she's immediately, in her mind, you can see, that's gross.
So up to that point, I think they did a really cool job of showing him not really understanding the culture there, of being a raider who's pretending. Because like he was fiddling with some technology, and it was obvious to us from our angle that he didn't understand it while she was doing all the talking about, you know, their futures together. And yeah, when he wipes his dick off on a curtain, you're just like, what an animal.
I know, it's like everything else you can kind of be like, all right, well, they just are obviously from somewhere else, but, you know,
Yes.
they might not be bad guys. And then he wipes his dick on a curtain, and you're like, ah! Disgusting.
We gotta shoot them all in the head.
Yeah. And so she obviously kind of notices this and is like starting to hear something out in like the distance. And as she gets closer to the door, because she gets up from the bed, she starts hearing gunshots. And then she jams her Pip-Boy back on her arm, the wrist thingy, which can detect radiation, and points it at him. And he's irradiated.
Click, 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 click.
And she's like,
You're not from a vault.
Yeah, you're a raider. Ah! And this is an amazing fight scene. They fight each other, and they do some cuts, I think, in here. But maybe I'll just do the scene in the bedroom first. Where like they're fighting. I'm like, yes, Lucy, go, go, go. And he has a funny line where he says, just so you know, this is the best day of my life. And then he comes at her with a knife. I'm like, shut up, fucking dick wiper. Like, get out of here. Get out of here. I know it is. And you're never going to have another day like this in your whole life again because she's going to murder you.
He ended on a high note.
Yeah. So he gets her, he shanks her. And this is also
That's right.
in a moment where you're just like, oh my, Lucy's player character is not in save mode. She's in survivor mode. Like, But she breaks a glass or something and shanks his face. And
It looked like a teapot or a pot of some sort to me.
okay. I didn't notice what it was.
The tea connection, because she did a Riddick kill.
Ah, yes. Well, I love gory when it's not like torture porn, but I still have a hard time watching it. So scenes like that, like I knew it was coming, so I like turned my head away and then I come back to it. So I'm glad Paul could clarify that it was a teapot. Yes, and like she really gets his face, and I like that they're going full gore. I mean, there's literally a perk in the Fallout game called Bloody Mess. So
And we absolutely picked that perk when we started this show.
yeah. So she's picked that perk. Let's see. Oh, I guess
My next note is about the music.
Oh yeah, go for it.
So I didn't have a lot to say except that it was just very perfect for the violence. It was very happy-go-lucky music, and you're just watching people get thrown around and like stabbed in. Well, fork in the eye was like the next note I have.
Oh yeah, so
Lucy's best friend, the pregnant woman, gets a fork in her eye.
like every scene that you see them fighting is just like so glorious. Like I wondered if this is kind of an homage to the Kill Bill scene, the Massacre of Two Pines, the wedding, where she's like fights and gets all bloody in her wedding dress and she's pregnant and stuff, because it kind of has that feel where she's like,
Yeah.
although, you know, the bride is not innocent and Lucy is, like, Lucy kind of has that badassery innocence as well, you know? And, like, every scene in it is like, no, these poor innocent civilians. But then you see a lot of them, like, really go rage.
Fighting back.
Hard
Yeah.
on. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And like you said, that one scene where her best friend, that like is a amazing side character moment, because she's been talking down about her husband like the whole episode, like how he's kind of like milk toast and stuff. But then he ends up dying and you see her like scream in agony and rage. You're like, oh, she did love him. And then she picks up like a Tommy gun after she gets stabbed in her eye and it's just like like taking out all these raiders, and you're like, you go girl, you got this. And it's all slow motion.
Yeah, it almost felt like you were watching a pastiche, like a comic book, and you're just zooming in on the different things as they're happening.
And then one of the things we didn't really talk about is where they do all the festivities is like their cornfield, and the backdrop is like actually a projected scene of like a sunset, and it's really beautiful. And as the fight is happening, the projector gets messed with, and like the old projectors used to be film, and if they burned,
Yes.
you could see the burning in the projection. And so that's like happening in the background.
Oh, and actually, that's a fairly common trope, is to show film burning as like a sign of an apocalypse. Like, there's a movie called Matinee. And
Oh.
in the movie within the movie, there's like a nuke that goes off, and then the film like is deliberately, I don't remember exactly, but the film starts to melt and burn, and everyone in the audience freaks out that like the apocalypse is actually happening, and they run out of the theater.
That's funny. That's a really cool tidbit. I didn't know about that.
I wasn't even thinking about that movie until you said that. So
Yeah, well, and it's also a cool scene because it's sort of mimicking the nuclear apocalypse in the background that's kind of like happening again, but in Vault 33. There's a lot of really cool stuff just in that scene. So you kind of get cuts back and forth between Lucy, Norm, and this scene in the cornfield.
Right.
And Norm arrives back at the cornfield and is just like shocked and stunned. And in the meantime, Lucy has gone into her bathroom. And again, this is like classic game. You always find stim packs, which are the healing needles in the game.
Yes.
In the medicine cabinet, she pulls it out, and I'm like, they're fucking doing it! They're doing stim
Doing
packs! And then, like, you see a dude take jet. I'm like, they're doing it! They're doing the drugs. It's so amazing. Like, that they obviously love the source material, or at least they're trying really hard to, you know, be true to the video games. So she stabs herself with a stim pack, and she's healed to a degree. And And she goes to the armory. And again, this is like a classic scene where you go into the armory and what weapons does she choose? Oh, the classic dork RPG weapon. I don't want to kill people. She pulls out a trank gun and a high-powered trank gun. And now she's got a bandolier of like tranks. And so she arrives at the fight at the cornfield and sees her baby bro about to get shanked and saves her baby brother, shoves him in a trunk or something. Like, I love that scene. And like, it's so hilarious how much shorter he is than her. Like, she like puts her giant arm around him. She's like not a big woman. And she's like, I'm going to protect you, and like saves him. I love that moment. And so she's kind of fighting, like almost gets killed another time in the cornfield.
Also, at some point during what you were describing, her dad was there with a hammer.
Well, that happens when her husband arrives.
Okay.
Yeah, so her husband somehow lived from being shanked in the face and arrives and again starts strangling her. And then Papa McClane shows up and with a giant mallet and just like mallets him in the head. Well, no, it's a shovel. He shovels him in the head because I was like, oh, okay. That's a resource that you can use to make other shit in Fallout in the crafting bench. But anyway.
Yeah, I just thought I saw a hammer. Okay.
I think he might have had I feel like I saw a hammer too, but I think he had both. So then... Okay. You've been pickled! Like, he basically drowns the husband in the pickle barrel, and that's how he dies. Yeah, that was so good. Basically, Papa McClane and Lucy are the only ones kind of left in the field alive, and then they hear something happening, and they run to the entrance of Vault 32, and there's Moldaver, and she's got all of their other friends trussed up in a hostage situation. And so this is kind of where it gets a little confusing. I think it would be for the audience if you haven't watched all of it, where I don't understand her trade that she asks for, because she's like, your daughter or these people? And then he's like, I'll choose my daughter. I don't get it. Like, do you want to save the daughter or them and then take him, or was she gonna take the daughter? It didn't make any sense to me how she said it, I guess.
I definitely felt like she probably should have explained herself better, because it could have been kill them or kill the daughter, or save them or save the daughter, so whatever he chooses could be the wrong option just from lack of communicating what the actual deal is.
And why didn't she just say, like, I'm gonna take you now and like blow up the entrance or kill all these people? I didn't understand the choice, I guess, that she was giving him.
And his response to it was a little weird too, because he turned to the daughter and he said stuff to her, and before he like puts her in the room, the sealed off area, you're not sure if he's like saying goodbye to her or choosing her. Like, it just wasn't super clear.
So anyway, what happens is he shoves his daughter in this sealed off room. All the people who are hostages run away. Moldover steals the dad, and just before she leaves, she like looks in the window at Lucy and is like, you look just like your mom. And you're like, Moldaver knows her mom? What? And then all the hostages like run away, and then Moldaver...
See, I thought they got blew up.
Well, you see them all
so
later.
You know better than me. Okay, yeah. I just, the way she's like, no, oh my God, I thought they were all dead. Or some of them.
In the same episode, you see all of them.
All of them? Okay. I
didn't notice, like, Chet was there.
All the dudes look pretty interchangeable to me.
Okay.
And the fact that they're all in the same uniform, like,
and the things
that
lady.
Make you sick are being pregnant, yeah. And her reaction shouldn't have been that horrified if they all were safe. She should have just been like, oh, cool, they're blowing up the entrance.
I think she was horrified because they were stealing her dad more than, like...
Okay.
So that's like the end of that portion. I feel like that was the majority of my notes was just from that scene, because it was just like such an amazing opener. And I will say, so the next portion is about Maximus, who's one of the three main characters of the show. And he is my least favorite storyline, but it is still a good storyline. The actor is Aaron Moten, and I looked to see what he was in, and he hasn't really been in a lot that I've seen, so nothing of note to me anyway. If there's something that you liked him from, great.
Feel free to write us.
Yeah, tell us why you like him so much. I mean, he's a good actor. I feel like he does that sad, mad look in his eyes, like equal parts sad, mad, pretty well.
Which fits his character very well.
Exactly. I could say that how to describe him through this whole series, sad, mad. And then they picked Johnny Cash as the songster for...
That's a new term we just coined it here.
For the Brotherhood of Steel, because pretty much every scene where they're trying to do something dramatic or their opening scene was Johnny Cash, which is a good choice. I fucking love Johnny Cash. He is an amazing singer. They do a really good job with the opening for the Brotherhood of Steel. So they kind of show you that it's militaresque and that there's a lot of orphans hanging around. There's like a lot of young kids dressed up in this military gear. You open with Maximus, our main character, getting the shit beat out of him. And his friend Dane comes and gives him a hand to stand up. So you kind of just get some scenes of Maximus and Dane together. They're each other's person in the Brotherhood of Steel. You see that Maximus is kind of not the best Brotherhood candidate.
Yeah, he's struggling pretty hard.
He's in class and they're talking about what the Brotherhood of Steel is so that the audience kind of knows, but it's in this classroom setting where they're saying, like, we go out and look for tech and you have to be able to identify good pre-war tech. So he holds up this like electrical engineering diagram and like, what is this? And he's like, I don't know. And he gets the shit kicked out of him again for not knowing the answer. But I think it's kind of cool that they use the electrical engineering diagram of the tech as like, this is how you'll know what it is.
Yeah, the line from the teacher after like smacking him is like, unless you know what to find and preserve, you are more useful as a corpse.
Oh, so they're kind of like
Burn.
Culty.
Yeah.
I mean, they call themselves officers, but they look like priests, kind of, the head guys. So they definitely have a culty, religious vibe to their love of technology, which I think is an interesting take on it, right?
Yeah.
You get a scene of Maximus walking out, and they get the hero shot of all of the esquires.
Active brothers in the Brotherhood.
Yeah, there you go.
They get their badass walk-in scene. One guy like does that neck thing.
Yeah. Woo vertibirds, woo power armor. It all looks amazing. It's fun to see. They get a really fun entrance. So I think they're definitely hitting all of the things that people want to see that are from the games and making it exciting for people who have never played the game. The next scene is kind of Maximus learning that his friend Dane got promoted over him. And he doesn't look happy about it. And Maximus has been placed on shit duty. And so while he's cleaning the shitter, he has a fit of rage and starts smashing the shit toilet seat up and down. And I'm like, ew, disgusting. Why isn't there also bloater flies hanging out around that shitter?
Honestly, when do we see those?
Anyway, you can see that he has a lot of rage, and his goal is revenge, we learn later, against the people who have harmed him. He doesn't really describe how, but we do get one little flashback in a later scene where he's a young boy and he sees a guy in power armor walk up. So he kind of hero worships the Brotherhood.
Yeah.
He's pissed that his friend got promoted. The next scene is them waking up, and Dane, his friend, puts his foot in his boot, and there's a razor blade in the boot, and Dane starts screaming, and they're definitely very injured, and everyone's shocked, and then they cut there.
Yep. and I check my shoes religiously now.
Yeah, what a fucked up thing to do. Like, can you imagine? That is like, your feet are so sensitive. They skip again to Lucy. Lucy wants to go after her dad. She wants to create a search party. But the new Vault Council, made up of the people that were kind of on the application committee at the very beginning, are now leaders of the Vault, and they deny her request, and she gets pissed. And there's a couple of like really funny scenes here of Norm kind of trying to look inconspicuous, and he's standing in the hall, and I have a clip from that scene because I think it's really funny. He has this really funny line with this guy who's like walking by him with a wheelbarrow with a dead body in it. So
Yes.
Hey, Davey. How's your day going?
Bad as everyone else's.
Bad as everyone else's.
how is your day going? It's like so hilarious. It is like something someone would do if they're just like trying to be like, oh, nothing's wrong here, but they don't know how to do it. Like, how is your day going?
It's
So
absolutely my nightmare scenario to say something like that in that situation.
I love the idea of like Paul has just murdered someone and the police come over and they're like, so tell me where you were the other day. How was your day going?
I'm fine. How are you?
I can just imagine it. Oh, so funny. And I like how the guy kind of turns around and looks back at him like, what are you talking about, dude? So good. And we learn that Norm and Chet have decided to help Lucy leave the vault, and Chet wants to go with Lucy because he's a romantic, and she tranks him and knocks him out so that he can't.
She knows.
Yeah, so that he won't follow her. And then
The one that didn't get tranked is like, I'm too chicken. I'm not going to go.
oh yeah, Norm, her brother, is like,
Yeah.
she's like, I don't want you to go either. And he's like, no, I don't want to go. I'm too chicken. Yeah,
This is your hero stuff. That's not my stuff.
Yeah, that's your job, girl, sister of mine. So the vault door opens, and I would say this is your classic vault door opening scene. I got goosebumps. I was like, yes, they did an amazing job of like placing her in the middle and like seeing it open. It was so good. And
The bright white light.
we're bringing back lessons in lore.
Yeah.
So Paul, why don't you tell us what your lessons in lore is today?
So I just kind of wanted to talk about vault-like things that exist in the real world, and share some of my love for silly vault stuff. So the first thing that came to my mind when Marcy's like, hey, you want to talk about vaults? So I had grandparents in Colorado Springs, and Colorado Springs is a very Air Force community. It has the Air Force Academy, and it is also where, from the late 50s until very recently, the center of all North American air defenses. Like Canada and the US partnered in this thing called the Cheyenne Mountain Complex. And it basically is aware of everything that flies in the sky within 100 miles of the continental US or more. Like, it's got this joke thing where like every Christmas they'll track Santa's progress on their radar and just tell people in jokey updates where he is.
That's cute.
Yeah, but this place is no fucking joke. So like, it's a 5-acre facility built under 2,000 feet of granite. It's got 15 three-story buildings that are basically earthquake proof because they have these giant springs and like thousands of springs just to keep it from wobbling.
Wow.
It's got 25-ton blast doors. A nuke could go off within like a mile of those doors, and they've got like angling and like ventilation to make the blast just diffuse away from the facility. They also have like catacombs of ventilation so that they can filter out chemical, biological, nuclear waste. Like, this is a true vault. Like, this place is where you might want to be if there were an apocalypse.
I feel like Stargate, the television show, had had the Stargate in this place. At least it seemed like it was there.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I've never watched Stargate, and maybe I should. But yeah, this place is fairly mythologized. You know, the Horizon Zero Dawn game, this is where Mount Gaia, or whatever they call it, is centered at. Like, it is a source of some lore.
Cool.
Yeah, it's got like millions of gallons of waters in reserve and like battery banks, redundant power supplies. It's pretty fucking cool.
So how many people is it meant to house if something like that happened?
I don't exactly know, and maybe it is a secret, and that's why I didn't see that information. But like 15 three-story buildings, that's a pretty good community.
Yeah.
And they have like a whole battalion that's like there to give them power uptime. Like their whole job is to make sure that the energy flows.
Wow. Cool.
A lot of people. So then I wanted to think of the more sciencey sort of vault, because Vault Tech is about doing experiments. And so I missed the window this year, but the first year of the Mars surface mission simulation known as Chappie, I applied to be one of the people. What they do is a 1-year test in Houston at the Johnson Space Center. Specifically, it's a 1,700 square foot 3D printed habitat. And the things that they test there are like isolation, like the time delay between communication between Earth and Mars. So they have like a 45-minute, hey, is anyone there? 45 minutes later, yep, we're here. So they have all kinds of simulated bad experiences to see how people can survive them.
Wow, cool.
They just finished their first of 3 missions. And when they're year long, they're actually Mars years. So it's 378 days. And just this June, they finished the study, exited the facility, and we're doing post-mission debriefs. So that's kind of fun and cool. And I learned from there that the Space Center has a lot of other little facilities. So I showed Marcy a picture, and she said it kind of looks like what'd you say?
Tampon.
Yeah, you said it looks like a tampon. It's
because it literally says it's like white, and it has like a little like tampon coming off of it, and the little tampon says hygiene model. So I said feminine quote unquote hygiene module.
So yes, the Hera habitat is 650 square feet, and it's a 2-story with like a little bit of an attic or something. That's also for isolation studies and also light and dark cycles and other kinds of things that they can control in a little simulated environment. So that's pretty cool and sciencey. And then thinking about those, I was thinking, the Antarctic research stations are very much like habitats, closed systems, which then also means that the International Space Station sort of counts as a vault. And so I looked that up. It has a crew of 7. It launched in 1998, and it is 358 feet long and 239 feet wide. They launched 990,000 pounds of material to that's what the station, how much it weighs. And like it has an orbital decay of 2 kilometers a month. And so that would be a very bad vault to be on for 279 years.
And aren't they bringing down the International Space Station here soon, like to Earth?
Yeah, the mission ends within the next 10 years.
Yeah, but isn't that crazy? Like, how are they going to crash it into the Earth? Like, where are they going to do it? Like,
yep, they have a whole plan about it.
Well, that's awesome. Those are really cool real world examples of us trying to figure out what do we do if something bad happens? Because it's not just like nuclear apocalypse we have to worry about. There's potential for some comet or some asteroid that's too big that could hit our Earth and then cause all kinds of havoc. Obviously, I'm the kind of person that likes the idea of getting humans off this planet, because if our planet dies in some random thing like that, then at least we've got somebody on another planet. And so many people are like, no, that's dumb. And I'm like, we are just a tiny speck, like one little rock and billions of billions
all our eggs are in this basket.
And like, it seems hard when there's people starving and different things, but we spend our resources as humans on lots of stupid shit. Like this, in my opinion, is at least trying to keep the human race alive past this one planet. So
yeah, Marvel movies are in like the $1 billion range, like maybe a couple fewer Marvel movies in a year, and we start doing stuff that's actually important.
Yeah.
Medical research and space exploration.
Yeah. And I just don't understand why people hate space exploration so much. Like in the 60s, I get that it was because it was a space race against another country, but like, it's cool. All the people who saw that stuff, all the people who saw Star Trek, all the people who, you know, watched these shows and dreamed became the people who make amazing shit for you. Make your fucking iPhones, make your fucking things that you use every goddamn day. Like, if you want people to dream, give them stuff to dream about. Staying on this shitty earth that, like, yes, you know, there's lots of people making amazing new advances in cleaning up our earth. Let's like put our money there, you know? Like every day I read about stuff that people could put into implementation, but like half the people are like, I don't care, I'm just gonna keep using my single-use products, you know, whatever. Anyway, rant done. But
I love the rant. NASA is responsible for all kinds of things that have made your, yes, you, quality of life better, including the microwave.
Mm-hmm.
And then they weren't allowed to commercialize it, so some corporation gets all the credit for NASA's work.
Yeah, lots of cool shit comes from smart minds that some company gets to patent. So that's cool. I like that we're doing those experiments. It's kind of interesting to think about, like later we'll talk about solitary confinement because of the ghoul, but it's a similar type experiments.
And so I have one thing I can also add to this lore. It's the least vaulty of the vault things, but it's the most awesome science. Back in around the time of World War II, in the city of Leningrad, there was a scientist whose last name is Vavilov. He was a geneticist in a country that was anti-genetics. They, because of communist ideology of the location, they believed genetics was a bad lie meant from the capitalists to like control your freedom to be whatever you want or some bullshit. But this man grew up in a famine and realized like, oh, we can do stuff to like prevent famines and make sure that, you know, there's healthy agriculture available to everyone. And he traveled the world and brought seeds of lots of different fruiting vegetative bodies to Leningrad. And then they had a whole like multi-thousands of people organization to like farm these things and keep the plants growing. And the Nazis, who did believe in genetics, and that's all they cared about, wanted to steal all of his seed banks in Leningrad. So that was a reason they attacked it. They put Leningrad in a 872-day siege of like absolute starvation. No food's getting in. And a dozen scientists protected this many thousands of, you know, seeds of diversity from anyone trying to eat it, including each other. And 9 of them died within like arm's reach of food because they wanted to preserve the diversity. There was a guy who's like a peanut specialist, and he died with a bag of peanuts in his hands.
Oh, man.
So like they made a little vault for themselves.
Cool. And like, again, it tells us why like science is so important, because protecting diversity, like you're saying, like there is a lot of problems with the way that we make food because we are reducing diversity. And so now we're having to use so many other things to keep these crops alive that are non-diverse. And so it's so important for us to continue to try to preserve things that are important to us moving forward as a species, like a seed bank, or preserve people who have ideas and are free thinkers and dream about stuff that you may think is stupid now, but could make your life 1,000 times easier later. So,
yep. So unless you know what to find and preserve, you're more useful as a corpse.
So Paul's a Brotherhood of Steel bro.
Apparently.
I should have known. He's a cultist. Gosh, Paul. That brings us back. So now she's walking out of the vault. Because I do have one funny thing to say, because it looks amazing. It's a really cool scene of her like entering the wasteland. And then she sees the ash sculptures basically of people who died during the actual nuke going off. And I guess that's a thing that happens, as people burn so fast that they just were stuck as like ash people.
I guess I'm not too studied on that.
Yeah. It made me think of the myth of Lot's wife from the Old Testament, where
Wow.
she was warned by God not to turn back and look at Sodom and Gomorrah, but she did and turned to salt. And then in my mind, I was like, maybe there was an ancient culture that did get technology enough to have a nuke and nuked Sodom and Gomorrah. She looked back and got turned into ash. Lot goes to the vault of a cave and fucks his daughters. It's just like Vault 33, guys. Just saying.
Oh my goodness, the Bible and Vault 33 are the same thing. Lots of cousin stuff.
Lots of cousin stuff. I knew you'd like that one.
I love it.
And then she like walks out and looks out into the distance.
And that was her next big okie dokie, right?
Does she say okie dokie?
Yeah, I think she's like looking out and she's like okie dokie, and then she starts to leave the vault.
Yeah. So yeah, when she says another okie dokie, and then she sees a famous cityscape sort of view, which is Chicago's Navy Pier, which has like a huge Ferris wheel on it. And the reason I know this is because I've seen that cityscape 1,000 times in the new television show Dark Matter on Apple Plus. Like, they show it like 80 times in that show. And I was like, God, Chicago's getting a lot of play in these new sci-fi shows.
Huh. And also that Ferris wheel is looking pretty good for 279 years.
I know, seriously, it didn't crash over yet. So that's the last you get of Lucy. She's okie dokies her way into the wasteland.
So perfect.
Then they transition back to Maximus. And again, his storyline to me isn't as interesting, but he's blamed for the razor blade incident, and he has to talk with the officer, and there's a guy in power armor behind him, and
speak.
Yeah, he's like crying and weeping like a little sad, mad baby. And then I have a little clip from that scene as well, where he gives his hero speech.
I want to thank you. Just for your guidance and for giving me a home. I had no place in the world, so if I can help the Brotherhood make it better, Eden or whatever, even if it means giving my own life, I'll do it. And I'd be grateful to the Brotherhood for giving my life meaning.
Good boy. And you will be Knight Titus, new squire.
So there was a lot of subtlety, I feel like, in his performance there. You hear him go from like really struggling, like crying voice to it almost doesn't even sound like the same person with that end statement where he says he'll die for them. The strength in his voice is so different from the weakness at the beginning. So yeah. I appreciate that performance.
I think we should start calling him Sad Madimus.
Yes. Sad Madimus. Oh, that's good. I know I say that a lot, but...
There's also something that the Inquisitor guy said that made me realize that, the Brotherhood of Steel's a little progressive. They use the they-them pronouns.
That's true for Dane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to be, it doesn't matter as long as you follow the Brotherhood of Steel's main through line, which is we love technology. Maximus becomes a squire to Knight Titus, and I'm excited for you all to Paul in particular to watch the episode with Knight Titus because it's fucking hilarious.
Ooh.
And Maximus gets branded with a T, which I think is kind of stupid. I feel like it should have been like the Brotherhood of Steel brand, not like the Knights brand. That's pretty crazy.
That's what it was. Okay, yeah.
Titus.
Wow.
Yeah, you're basically
I kind of thought it was
his.
just like a stylistic sword, but that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah. I was like, Jesus, you have to be connected to this knight the rest of your career? It's weird.
Yeah. Also, branding people, not a great look. Definitely something that slavers liked to do.
Yeah. Kind of iffy there, Brotherhood.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then we get the information. So this is the mission for these other two characters, for the Ghoul and Maximus, is we hear that this Enclave person has escaped with some technology, and the Brotherhood of Steel wants to find this person, and they pull out a wanted poster of Linus from Lost and the dog meat. So it's funny how amazing they did get his face. That's the actor who you're gonna meet later, is the guy who played Linus from Lost. I'll tell you his name in the next episode because I don't remember it right now, but
for now he's just Linus.
He's just Linus. I do think it's interesting, and we'll talk about it again more later in the next episode, but that they've now chosen the Belgian Malinois as like the dog in movies, whereas I just want a good old GSD German Shepherd dog for like the dog. Why are we going Belgian Malinois? Like, give me a German Shepherd.
Yeah, I was a German Shepherd household growing up, so I agree.
So anyway, you see Linus, it's not really Linus, it's a scientist from the Enclave. And for those who aren't players of the game, the Enclave is actually a leftover remnant of the United States military and government. So they're kind of one of the factions that are part of the Fallout universe. And finally, we get back to our favorite character who was once a human and has now become a ghoul.
You think we forgot about him when we didn't?
We didn't. He's the final little bit of this episode, and the opening of his scene is like amazing. They use the junk jet, which is a gun that just shoots junk, and so this guy shoots another guy with the junk jet, and it's a baby doll leg that kills him. It's so funny. It's a perfect opening to the ghouls scenes. And then you also immediately see Mykelti Williamson, aka Bubba Gump. I was like, Bubba Gump! Like, immediately I recognized him. I was like, oh my God. Like, where's Tom Hanks? Is he in the background? Like, anyway, I couldn't stop with the Bubba Gump. But, of course, they tell this story about this ghoul is in the ground. He's been there a long time. You see these, like, bags of liquid feeding into the ground. They're in a graveyard. And so they dig him up, and they're talking about how, what if he's feral? So in the Fallout universe, there's ghouls, which are humans who have lived a really long time, but they're suffering from radiation, and some of them have gone completely crazy, and some of them are not crazy. I won't tell Paul, but later they give a reason for why some are crazy and some are not, which you don't really have in the Fallout games that I know of. So they dig him up, and they've got this chicken sitting there, and they're like, if he goes for the chicken right away, we know he's feral.
I love how they said it, too. A feral ghoul can't abide a chicken.
Yeah, that was good. Very Western-esque, especially the ghoul storyline. And so he's actually in a coffin, and the coffin opens, and he's like, and then I actually do have the first line that he says after he's comes out of the coffin.
Well, well, well. Why, is this an Amish production of the Count of Monte Cristo? Or just the weirdest circle jerk I've ever been invited to.
Like, I don't know what it means, but it's fucking hilarious.
Like, how many circle jerks have you been in, man?
And I love how he's calling those guys guy's Amish. He's like obviously a badass because these guys are just chumps to him. The leader of the gang, Bubba Gump, is like, I got you woken up. This is going to be my last job. I want you to help me find these people. And I liked the scene because they show the bounty again, the wanted poster, but this time it's like hand drawn. So when it was at the Brotherhood, they had, you know, those old printers, that dot matrix printers. So the bounty was like dot matrix, and then like here it's like hand drawn and not as sophisticated looking. So he shows him the bounty of Linus and Dogmeat, and then he just decides like, I don't need to help you guys, I'll just do it myself, and kills everybody in the gang. You do learn a little bit. You learn that this guy actually knows that the guy that escaped the Enclave is actually heading to Moldaver. So you hear that line. So there's a clue. You kind of figure out that maybe, of course, Lucy will meet up with these guys at some point because they're all heading to where Moldaver is, because she's the mysterious person who's machinating things in the background.
The name that means nothing and everything.
So yeah, he kills everybody.
Except the chicken.
That's right. He's like, fuck you guys and your feral ghoul test. I'll only leave the chicken alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I couldn't have asked for a better intro to a Fallout television show. I feel like they definitely, at the end there, it really had that the good, the bad, and the ugly feel. But they also have like the high tech feel, and even the music, the background music from the Brotherhood of Steel seemed more techy. And then like the silliness of the vault. I mean, there's silliness in other pieces of it, like with the ghoul, but I feel like they just hit all the right notes with that, like seriousness and silliness.
And I think I say this about a lot of shows, that the first episode is generally like necessarily boring because you have to be introduced to all these, you know, new characters and what is driving them. But I think this show didn't do that. It cut it up interestingly, so you were always like, ooh, but I want to know about, you know, the ghoul guy, and it wasn't boring. So good job, first episode.
Yeah, they did a great job of introducing all of the characters in an interesting enough way that you were engaged and you didn't really want to stop watching that storyline, and you're kind of annoyed that now you have to go to a different one. But then once you got to the end of that storyline, you're like, I want to stay with that one. So
yeah.
You care enough about the characters already. They're able to give you little snippets of all of their backstories. Again, showing us in little ways instead of like just giving exposition. It was like all given to you in natural ways.
Yeah. And with the vault motivation, I was fully expecting everyone in the vault to die except for her. So I was very happy when, you know, her brother survived. And I guess I was wrong that anyone died in the hostage scene. So yeah, I'm retroactively pleased that, you know, it's not a revenge everybody died plot, because I feel like the people that you start caring about, it's more fun to have them around to do more drama stuff later than to just, oh, everybody's dead.
Yeah, I think that that's a really fun piece of it, is that the vault story is actually still there. Like, you're following Norm. He's kind of one of the side characters that you're following. Kind of almost becomes a mini main character, I would say. So I like that they did keep quite a few number of the like characters in Vault 33 live. And you're right, it is good. Because I feel like a lot of the new shows do that, like Picard, I will use as an example, where the first episode I loved because I was like engaged in that very first character that you meet. And you're following her, great, yeah. And then they murder her, and then you switch to the twin, and you're like, I don't fucking care about her. I cared about the woman that you were showing me all in the first episode. And then the rest of it was just downhill from there. So, like, I think they did a great job with this opener. To leave it on a fun note, I did put a poll up on Twitter. And so I asked people, since each one of the characters in this show, the Ghoul, Lucy, and Maximus, kind of are a different type of character that you might play in a video game. I asked if they would be the Ghoul, who's a chaotic min-maxer, Lucy, the lawful lore lover, or Maximus, the power armor equals life character, or Dogmeat. And I got 6 votes, and 100% of the votes were all nerds like us, Paul. They're Lucy, the lawful lore lover. I guess nobody wants to own up to being a min-maxer, murder hobo, or a power armor bro.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense that the people that I would be friends with on Twitter X would probably play games the same way that I do, though. So thank you for doing my little poll. That was kind of fun to see what people would like. Our next episode is potentially going to be another little bonus episode for Fallout Shelter, since we all of my friends who you heard on the previous episode talk about the Fallout 3 and 4 games, we started to play Fallout Shelter again, and now all of us are playing that, so we might do a little bonus episode on Fallout Shelter, which is kind of fun because there's all these new characters that you can get in Fallout Shelter that are from the television show, which I've added them all to my Fallout Shelter vault already. And then the episode following that is going to be episode 2 of the show called The Target.
The Target. Nice.
What can you guess what that episode is about?
I guess it's about Linus.
That's right.
Because he's the thing they're going after.
Yep, he's the target.
So we'll meet Dogmeat.
Yes. Oh my God. I shit my pants when I watched this episode. I mean, in a good way. I think if you can shit your pants in a good way.
You just did, so.
There's so much good Dogmeat stuff in this episode. Oh my God.
Aww.
So there's lots of good stuff to go for this next episode. I'll be talking about dogs. If you want to hear more from us about this topic, go ahead and go to any of our social medias. I'm on Twitter and Instagram the most, and it's Idle Ride or Idle Ride Podcast. You can also email me at idleridepodcast@gmail.com. Anyway, we're super excited to talk about Fallout Shelter in the next episode of Fallout Prime. So see you then. Bye.
Can't wait. Bye.